Hello and welcome to the 90MinuteCynic podcast. I'm your host Chris Gallagher and I'm joined today by Brian McManus.
Hello, Christopher.
Louis McCaffrey.
Alright, Chris.
And Christopher Sermanni.
Yo, Chris.
Obviously I was away last week, so obviously the podcast wasn't as good, but now I'm back. It's clearly going to be the best one of all time. Louis gets the head in his hands there. We're just going to kick on. I will start by saying that we may be a little bit Celtic heavy again this week. That's just due to the fact that the state that Celtic are in at the moment, and it's obviously something we want to talk about in a bit more detail than we would normally. But Serie A started this weekend. What did you think of the Serie A kickoffs, Chris?
Yeah, good to have it back. Watched Roma-Fiorentina on Saturday night. Roma looked pretty strong. Glad it's back.
Yeah, I watched the Juventus game myself. Juventus.
You have no pals.
I watched it.
Scraped a 1-0 win.
They were very much in command of the entire game. They just didn't have that real,
that quality.
Well,
lacked that quality.
They were playing the young 18-year-old they signed from PSG, Coman, up front. He looked terrific.
Chris Coman. It's going to get worse from here.
It really is.
Do you think Fiorentina have got a chance at the title now they've signed Mika Richards?
No, I do, actually. I think he's the missing piece in the jigsaw.
But no, you do find... Oh, do you know what? We'll come back to Serie A.
Okay.
We will start with Celtic. Everyone's itching just to get their point across all over the shop. Social media, people bumping into people on the street. I've had people just stop me in the middle of the street and tell me what they think Ronnie Dyler should do. What we're going to do is... Well, firstly, this is all kind of kicked off, I guess. Not kicked off, but... Celtic versus Maribor on Tuesday night. We record the podcast on a Monday, so we didn't have time to. Obviously, this is the first chance we've had to talk about the Maribor game. So I feel we should touch on it. That was the chance for Celtic to get into the Champions League. It clearly didn't happen. Brian, what were your thoughts on the Maribor game? And what are your thoughts on the Maribor game?
Just devastating, I suppose, but it was coming. We're obviously lucky to be there, but it's been a year in the making, so it wasn't any great surprise. What did frustrate me though is that all the kind of hindsight tacticians after the game slagging Dyler for starting Kaya instead of Commons and saying that was pretty much the reason we went out. There was guys next to me bawling and shouting in the first half saying that it's not the Celtic way, he was being too cautious, he was playing for a draw, which I don't think was the case. I think everybody was nervous, and I know Wee McGregor came out after and said that maybe the occasion got to some players as well. Absolutely gutted we're out, but as I say, I'm not really surprised just with the state that Dyler's been left with.
Chris Sermanni, Dyler did make some kind of bold changes in terms of who started. As Bryan said, Commons didn't start. Do you think he made a difference when he came on, Commons?
He livened it up a bit, but he we kind of just flattered to deceive. I don't think he looked as if he was going to make a difference at any point. As Bryan said, the performance wasn't a great surprise. I thought we looked pedestrian. He touched on the fact that I can't even get the words out. It's that depressing. He touched on the fact that we just didn't look any good at all. Yeah. Can I give the mic to Louis?
Give the mic to Louis. I mean, I know that might seem funny, but that's genuinely how we're all kind of feeling.
Not me. I've got plenty of words.
Oh Jesus. Louis been very angry all day. Take it away, Louis. No, we'll start with the Maribor.
All day? That's a bit of
the Maribor, I thought as Brian was talking about the starting lineup, I didn't have any complaints about the starting lineup when I seen it. Other than the usual Charlie Mulgrew being in the stadium and Efe Ambrose still being employed by the club. But I was happier with Efe Ambrose being at right back instead of centre back. But then thinking about it, Matthews was on the bench, so I don't know why he couldn't have played Matthews at right back and Lustig at centre half and not had Ambrose in the team at all. But he did say he wanted the experience from the Nigerian international.
Ambrose is certainly experienced at fucking up, so get him in there.
Absolutely.
Fuck up in a way.
But when you look at it on paper, he is one of our more experienced players. Champions League experience, World Cup experience.
Just because you play in a number of games doesn't mean that you've
Played well.
Yeah, he played well. Yeah.
Do you know that's I can kind of understand why he done it, as opposed to throwing a 19-year-old in to that environment.
Well, Matthews has had plenty of Champions League.
Matthews is the. I'm not a Matthews fan. Matthews, I thought was going to be a brilliant Celtic player, but he's not really done much.
He went backwards in his development.
A year and a half.
I think Ambrose. Sorry, will you let you continually?
Yeah, no. The game itself was awful. Another awful display. The one game that you would think that Celtic players would finally show a bit of heart, a bit of passion, a bit of fire in their belly to kind of right the wrong and prove people wrong, didn't happen. I can't think of the last time I've seen a Celtic player actually puff out their chest and play like they want to win a game of football. They are desperate to win a game of football. That doesn't happen anymore, and it's very difficult to watch. I know we'll go on to the Dundee game and we'll talk about that, but the Maribor game, the first half, I felt as if we were on the ropes again. We were on the ropes like the second half against Legia, where you thought at any moment we could get done. Even going forward, it was awful.
Sorry.
No. I was going to bring Chris in if you want to.
I may just get depressed again when I start talking, but we'll give it a go.
In terms of how we like, I mean, we had 15 attempts on target. Sorry, we had 15 attempts. We had 2 on target, whereas Maribor, the away team, had 10 attempts and 5 of them were on target. I mean, we had 7 shots off target. They had 2. I mean, is it? What is your take on that? I mean, is that down to the overall team, or is that down to the fact that we don't have a goal scoring striker? It can't. What do you think?
That's why we're sitting here. 3.5 hours before the window shuts, crapping ourselves that we're going to have to go with what we've got. Now, against Maribor, we looked pedestrian. We didn't create much. There wasn't any invention. But the main thing is, any chances we did have, we didn't look like we were going to score. It didn't look like we had that cutting edge. We had lots of the ball. We got to the 18-yard box, and we went, what do we do now? And this is the problem we've got. There's no focal point in attack. In the 2 ties, Stokes played up front, and in the away leg he worked tirelessly, to be fair. It's probably the only time I'm going to be fair to him. But he worked tirelessly, but you saw he's not going to be the answer. And then when we came home, I think a lot of them thought the job was done as well, by the way, after getting the result over there.
Yeah.
And I think the problem that, when we had him up front, there's no focal point. When you try to hit him, everything bounced back. And I think the main problem we do have is the lack of cutting edge up front. Because in all these games, we have had a fair bit of the ball, but it's when we get to the 18-yard box, we really don't know what we're doing. And that's really evident.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Bryan, unless you've got something like...
I was just going to say the other thing that I think caught Celtic out big time was the fact that they expected Maribor to play the way they did in the first leg, and Maribor totally switched up. I think Celtic and Dyla planned for Maribor to sit and try and counter them. We spoke about it on the podcast before the game. That's what we expected, and Maribor didn't do it. They pressed high up the pitch, had two men up,
Celtic did
attacking
not like
their defence.
They did not like being harassed.
Not absolutely gubbed.
And there's no one in the
Caught short.
See if Aberdeen play against Celtic and they harass them and they press them, this Celtic team will fold.
And there was absolutely no kind of cohesion in the kind of attacking 3. Stokes was running about like a fanny, searching for space. didn't even know where the ball was. I mean, how could we be playing that?
But that's generally what Stokes does.
It's all he does. He just runs about looking for something that's not there.
But generally, I mean, he was picking the ball up like near the halfway line.
When he's getting his head in his hands, literally. I've never seen him like this.
But the bad thing about the game is, like, Van Dijk missed an absolute sitter. This is the guy who thinks he should be playing at a higher level and can't score for 4 yards out.
Yeah.
McGregor hit the bar, and it's one of those ones where we had the chances actually to win that game, and if either or of them had went in, we'd all be in a totally different mood, but all the problems would still be there. So in a way, this has kind of just brought everything to a head, and it's why so many Celtic fans are going absolutely crazy just now.
Let me ask you this, Bryan. In terms of how we lined up against Maribor, and we're not going to focus the whole time on every individual game.
No, we should.
Actually, I'll ask Bryan first, but I'd like to hear your guys' opinions on it. What were your thoughts on Berget, or Berget? He's been getting absolute abuse ever since that game. Waste of space, not worthy of the strip. What did everyone think of him individually?
Do you know, I watched. I was at Celtic Dundee United game, and it's the most I've enjoyed a Celtic performance in years. And Berget got
a false dawn. You think?
I don't know. It's one of those ones where the players looked up for it. They were confident. Berget scored 2 goals. It was as if, it's finally maybe clicking. So I had no qualms about Berget starting. He'd probably deserved his place in the back of that game. Stokes looked really good that game as well. The disappointing thing in Maribor is, as Louis said, none of them, look interested. There's nobody actually bawling and shouting at people. I think Craig Gordon's probably the most vocal in the team, which is disappointing when you've got a captain who does nothing.
Yeah. I mean, it's his 4th game, and he does look angry, Craig Gordon, because obviously clearly he realises how bad we are playing. What thoughts on Berget, Chris?
He's not really impressed. I mean, I think last week we said he looked okay when he came on against St Johnstone. He looked bright, and in the Dundee United game, he looked really good. But I think right now we need to look at that game in isolation. As much as it pains me to say that, I think we do need to kind of put a pin in that, because if Dyla hadn't had that game, you wouldn't even think that there's anywhere that he could go from here. Do you know?
Yeah.
That at least gave us a sign of what it could possibly be. But Berget's his signing, and you can't say that he's really particularly impressed outside of that game. Yeah.
The other point I'll make, which I'll come to Louis with, is Stefan Johansson. He, to me, is a guy who flatters to deceive, is a phrase it's kind of often used. He's got a lot of energy. He runs about the pitch a lot. There was a lot of times during the Maribor game where he was chasing down the goalkeeper and everyone was cheering. Then 5 minutes later, he would give the ball away. His passing against Maribor was terrible, but it's not just been that game. He's had flashes of games where he's been terrific, played really, really well. The Dundee United game, again, comes to mind. Johansson, is thoughts on
him? He's not. He didn't have a very good game against Maribor, as you say. He was disappointing. He couldn't seem to pick a pass very well. He was getting caught out positionally. Can't keep up with the play, despite his kind of runs and try to track people down, but really not having any end product. And then again at the weekend, the most worrying thing for me at the weekend against Dundee, and I know we're going to come to that game, but with Johansson in particular, I thought he slowed the game down so much.
That's an excellent point.
He dwelled on the ball. But he seemed to do it deliberately. It wasn't even as if it was because he didn't have any options or there wasn't any space. He purposely dwelled on the ball and tried to slow the game down, which was the exact opposite of what we needed. And when you think about it, the Celtic team really doesn't have any pace other than McGregor, who obviously has a bit of pace to him, and he showed that against Maribor, to be fair to him. There's no one else. Berget, he looks rubbish, but I wouldn't say that he was any worse than. I don't think he should be singled out for abuse any more than some of the other players. Personally, I think he's been put in almost to play in the Samaras role to beat a man in the wide area that he can't do. He obviously can't do that.
See when you're talking about Johansson slowing the game down, I think Berget did that a lot. He stopped the ball, he took a couple of maybe a touch or two too many to try to take a guy on, but not take him on at pace, just literally try and take him on.
Yeah, he tries to take him on, and when a player should be trying to take someone on, especially one-on-one in a wide area like that, they should be looking at their feet and trying to see where their weight is and shift away from it. I think he's looking at their bloody kneecaps or something and can't decide what to do. I mean, he seems to try and knock the ball forward and then stumbles into them and it just breaks down. But I think he's been put into a role that he's just maybe not for him. and we're trying to make the best of a bad situation with that guy.
Dyler's worked for him before, though, so surely he must know where he plays. Birgit enjoy playing under Dyler. I think the most of the team bottled it. Nobody wanted the ball. McGregor was the standout, which is really worrying that a 18, 19-year-old 20 is the player with the most confidence. I mean, for the system Dyler wants to play, you need players who are prepared to actually take the ball and be prepared to lose it, but actually try something with it.
Well, see, that is the point I was making, not last week, but the week before, when McGregor, the last couple of weeks when McGregor's taken someone on, and when he's lost the ball, he still had the confidence to take them on again. I actually thought against Maribor, when he started losing the ball, he started to think to himself, shit, I'm losing the ball here, as opposed to getting the ball again and being confident.
Well, the crowd influenced that a lot.
I think the other players influenced it. The crowd did influence it. You can understand that. The crowd are anxious. But the other players influenced it, because as soon as they got the ball, they wanted rid of it. Whereas I think there was part of him thinking, I'm going to look like a dick here because I'm taking people on, I'm losing it, and people are going to think, I'm not as good as I am, maybe.
I mean, the team get booed off at half-time, which I thought was horrendous. I mean, fair enough, they didn't. It was a really bad half, but at that point we were still in the Champions League, and there were people booing them at half-time, which is at a time when it's
way, if you ask me.
Well, it's a lot of the new players, new system, new manager, biggest game of the season, and it started for the stands and permeated onto the pitch. They were just nervous and rubbish.
The game was crying out for a captain's performance to drag the team through it. And if you're turning and looking at Charlie Mulgrew for that, then you're humped, man. Because that guy's, as we said, if you put the slightest bit of pressure on him when he's sitting in central midfield, he loses the ball. He should. We said it pre-season. Me and Louis have been united in how much we hate the guy. Brothers in arms. No, I don't hate the guy. That's not true. We were united in saying basically that we don't. I would never have him in my Celtic starting 11, let alone him be the stand-in captain while Scott Brown's out. He's never going to inspire that team. He's not going to make the young players. He's not going to influence the young players and drag them through important games.
Yeah.
The fact we're weaker with him in the side, and Dyler's made a rod for his back, making him the captain. Yeah,
well, I think that's the kind of point, though. Dyler actually made him captain.
That must have been influenced from. Scott Brown. Obviously, he does make a difference as a captain. Who else would there be?
Wasn't he already vice captain though?
You wouldn't. Lennon.
I think Dyler's just went with the system that's already there, and that's why we've been speaking about it, and I mentioned it before that I think Dyler. I worry that there's a power within the players and within the dressing room that Dyler is either shiting it from, or it is just too overwhelming, and he won't. He doesn't think it's worth tackling, because if he turns around and gives it to someone else, then Charlie Mulgrew being there for as long as he has, and maybe the kind of influence he has in the changing room, he doesn't want to kind of rock that. I don't know. Well, but then Lustig for me would have been my captain ages ago.
I thought Lustig against Maribor was excellent. I think
that's a good shout.
He's the only one I've seen with any kind of passion in years.
The only problem with Lustig, and this moves us on. Obviously, the Maribor game. We'll touch on the UEFA Cup draw, Europa League draw. Maribor are going to get humped, and I hate seeing that. That's even more embarrassing. But we'll touch on the Europa League draw a little bit later on. Talking about Lustig, that brings us up to the Dundee game. Found out today that Lustig is going to be out for a month.
What?
Yep, Lustig's out for a month. Pulled out the Sweden squad. When it's not going your way, it's not going your way, is it? Anyway, so Celtic versus Dundee. It finished 1 each. Same sort of lineup, 4-2-3-1. Berget, McGregor. Commons started. Commons was captain as well. What does it say in terms of, now we're looking for a stable team, and we're looking for a team that's going to be consistent. You like your players to know, their kind of role. Commons is in 1 week and he's out the next. That's not healthy. For me personally, I don't know how you guys think about it.
Commons has been poor this season, regardless of how good he was last season. And Sunday's game, him and Stokes, it should never be near a Celtic jersey again, based solely on that performance. The two of them were awful, totally non-existent, and sort of be put off with that mad cat.
It's Marek.
And Commons was an absolute disgrace, as he was Celtic captain, and there was nothing about the team again. Griffiths came on actually, and Griffiths actually proved that he should certainly be ahead of Stokes for the number one striking role.
I mean, the other point that you would say is that Commons and Denier as well. Now, the issue we've had, obviously, one of the big issues is defence. Our defence has been really dodgy. It gets changed on a game to game basis.
It's because none of them are playing very well, though. I mean, you can't. It's hard for them to stick with a settled back four when they're all playing really poorly.
But you're never going to improve a poor defence by changing it every week, are you?
But these are players that have been playing have played for Celtic for years.
Well, Denier hasn't, for example.
Well, Denier, okay, he's the exception, but Azagiri, awful at the weekend against Dundee.
Azagiri just looks like he's lost the ability to play football.
Yeah, I would agree. I think his time is up. If you were actually going to sign some players, which we know is not going to happen, you would immediately be signing 2 left backs to get rid of him.
You love a left back, Louis. Loves the left back.
Personally, I think we've got a ready-made one in Matthews, but there you go.
I just want to make this point clear. This podcast is obviously going up on Tuesday. We're recording on the Monday, so we're not going to be right up to speed with all the transfers. There's a chance Celtic might sign someone. If you're listening to this and Celtic have signed someone terrific, and we're glad.
Linked with John Guidetti on Sky Sports News, and Baldy's away to Belgium.
Yeah, but okay, well, actually, we can obviously get most people.
Hot off the press, even though you'll know this tomorrow.
Yeah. Dylan McGeoch has joined Hibs on loan. Why don't we just give Hibs Dylan McGeoch? Just get rid of him.
Okay.
He's rubbish.
Mark Viduka is away to Leeds.
Will they take anybody else? We've got a few we can give them.
But anyway, Louis, just thoughts on the and Chris, did you watch the Dundee game? Did you watch it second time around?
No. I just saw bits and pieces of the commentary afterwards. Obviously, we seen 20 minutes of the game, 20-30 minutes, and that was enough, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. We could see we were at a christening yesterday, and we snuck away, and probably better if we hadn't. Frankly, it was that poor. Louis, you watched it. Talk me through the performance.
Yeah, it was awful again. It was amateurish. I actually felt like I was watching a side that were maybe from the Championship or something, and I'm not even trying to exaggerate. It was an awful performance, especially first half. Second half, I think they picked it up a wee bit, but first half we were getting done by Dundee, who have just been promoted. And
you don't use that phrase that you used earlier on?
No, I can't just now.
That was a brown phrase.
But no, it was terrible. And again, it was yet another game where you thought, right, this time Celtic, this will be an improvement. We'll put in a good performance, and yet again we were let down. I thought they struggled to get a hold of the game. The midfield are totally dominated by a guy who's got hair at the sides and back of his head, but nothing on top, which is never a good sign.
Bobby Charlton's playing for Dundee.
It might as well have been Bobby Charlton now. Some of the players. I mean, looking at the starting lineup, Berge was playing again out wide, get taken off before half time even came. I mean, when was the last time we seen that? Lennon was scared to make a substitution before the 70th minute.
Martin O'Neill didn't make a substitution until usually the 87th minute, to be honest.
But surely that's a plus point for Dyler, though.
Well, we thought Ronnie Dyler was mental by having half-time substitutions. He clearly thought, what is going on here, and weeked him off at about 40 minutes. He couldn't even wait the extra 5 minutes. It was that bad. It was like, this guy has to come off now.
Well, the 89 was coming round Parkhead Cross around that time, so give him time to get his bath and get changed and get up the road.
Up a road.
The road.
But yeah, Commons, awful. Stokes, awful. Kyle Johansson slowed the game down. Kyle, who I was feeling better about after his kind of the first leg against Maribor. I want Kyle to be a good player just to get it round Chris Gallagher.
Love it.
But it's never going to happen, I don't think. And Azagiri, again, poor. Denial looked shaky at times, but I thought he was all right. I actually liked O'Connell when he came on. I thought he had a good
O'Connell done really
performance
well,
in the
yeah.
second half. And Griffiths showed some good signs, although I didn't celebrate his goal, and I was quite disappointed he did, and all the other people in the pub, because we shouldn't be celebrating that.
Yeah, you should be celebrating
What?
equaliser.
And until they score 5 goals and really impress me, I kept my arms folded.
I will say about Griffiths, see if we don't sign anybody before the deadline, I would play him through the middle.
Yeah,
I think he's the best of a bad bunch.
I think that's something we don't agree on.
Totally. I mean, I don't understand. And maybe it is player power that Stokes is the main centre forward. He's hopeless. And I think that's one of the problems as well with the midfield. If they are holding on to the ball, they don't have anyone to release it to. Stokes is normally behind them. The guy he's not. I would love Celtic actually just to get rid of him. He doesn't fit in with the Dialer mantra of actually having players who are athletes.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, I've just looked at my phone, right, and Sky Sports News have just tweeted a tweet, believe it or not, saying, you know, it's hashtag Sky Deadline Day when Jim White is wearing his yellow tie, and there's a picture with it. Click on the picture, and it's bloody Neil Lennon doing up his tie. Is he having a laugh?
Neil Lennon
That's
doing that.
deliberate, that. Go on, Jim, reporting all the Celtic signings, eh? That's what that screams to me.
Do you not think Neil Lennon's
I'm
hooring
raging.
himself about Sky?
He
a wee
is.
bit much
He's
these
doing up
days?
people's ties now, trying to get a job.
Maybe that's his new job. Jim White's bitch.
In terms of the Dundee game, you know, Chris, Louis is absolutely raging at that picture. Chris, you made the point that, you know, Dyla really could have done well a win there, just not even from a point of view of just to keep him on an even keel.
Yeah.
Because too many bad performances, too many defeats.
It's 3 in a row.
Yeah. How often does that happen at Park?
Not very often, but
We didn't get beat by Dundee.
it's the same as a defeat.
It's basically a defeat.
Might feel like a defeat, but
I mean,
And also I said that Bergett should get the 89 and we were playing in Dundee, not at Parkhead. This isn't going very well, is it? This is like Celtic's transfer window, this podcast.
we're all just very angry. There's a lot of anger. I mean,
I think we're all
Well,
just
you just
baffled.
swear into the mic,
That's-
come on.
Do you know, I think
Neil Lennon. Do you know he's going to be on Sky Sports News tonight in the studio from 8 o'clock till midnight watching the deals? He wouldn't even know what a transfer deal is.
Jesus, I don't hate Neil Lennon that much.
maybe he's disappointed that Pookie and Baldy haven't kind of made the step up in class he's looking for. Where's Baldy away?
But some
Belgium.
mob. And apparently Danny Welbeck is not going to Arsenal after all.
Right, okay, do you know
You know that?
Is he
I
on,
know
is he
you
on
know
the
this.
89 on the way to Celtic Park?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I know everybody knows this. I'm just saying
Right.
that's my prophecy.
Right. Well, let me just make the point, Brian. What your kind of thoughts? Your final thoughts on Dundee? Do you think that it's going to be a turning point in terms of if we'd won that game and we'd won it well, it would again be a chance for Dyla to say, look, coming along fits and starts, but because we played so badly, because the attitude was so bad, because the players pretty much didn't turn up, do you think that maybe people who were supporting them are starting to now wane in support?
No, I mean, when your two most experienced players in Commons and Stokes do absolutely nothing, and that's got nothing to do with tactics or formations or anything, they're just there's no interest. And I think Dylan now has I mean, the guy's passionate. I don't know, you saw him obviously in front of the fans before the game, try to kind of G them up and stuff, and he says all the right things. I hope he's actually got the balls to go through with it, and that would mean dropping Mulgrew, Stokes and Commons and having faith in the new guys that he's signed.
Do you think it's Chris, do you think it's attitude in terms with Stokes and Commons? Because obviously they are good enough to play at this level, clearly, because they've done it in the past. As Bryan says, it'll bring up the idea that, they have done it in the past, so why aren't they doing it now? A lot of people, there are people who are maybe don't see the whole picture in football, and because their team aren't winning, they need to blame someone, so they blame the manager. Is it a case of, are the players just not trying for them?
It may be the case. That might be the case, but ultimately, no matter what you say about seeing the whole picture, Dyla carries the can. That's the bottom line. If he can't get them to perform, that's his problem. Yeah. It doesn't matter if they're not buying into it. He needs to make them buy into it, otherwise replace them, which doesn't look as if it's going so well. We were all on here. I've been pretty happy about Dyla's appointment. It was progressive, is the sort of word we used. His attitude to the game and the style of football that we were hoping he would play. Let's be frank here. Right now, he's worse than Lennon was last season.
Yeah.
Right now, Lennon would do a better job than Dyla. And that's not great.
Yeah. What? As I say, we only seen the last half an hour of the match, but from what I've been having speaking to you guys and seen a lot of stuff on social media and speaking to my dad as well, it seems to be like that match is the sort of match that comes just before a manager gets sacked, in terms of he's tried a lot of things and then this is the last straw, because the players didn't look like they were trying for him. The players looked clueless. These are words that, not my words that people have been using. Tactically naive was also used.
But we've had the exact same discussions with our last four managers, and only one of them in Mowbray turned out to be a disaster. Strachan's start was the exact same. Lennon's was the exact same.
Strachan's start wasn't quite this bad.
Getting pumped 5-0 away was the worst in Celtic's history.
What we need to remember, about Dyla as well is, if we say we get a striker in tonight, his front three could feasibly be completely different. Given in a couple of weeks, it could be Tonev, Mubarak, and whoever we get if we get somebody in tonight. So that problem could disappear. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that he's finished. Do you know what I mean? He has made changes. He looks as if he has made signings. He looks as if he wants to ingrain them into the team. So we don't know how they're going to play, but right now it's not the best.
Louis, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to ask you one question. Has your hope/faith in Dyla waned? It's obviously.
I think it's time for him to go.
Are you serious?
Yep. I'm not. Are
you serious?
I'm not saying that from the point of view of I don't like what he's trying to do. I don't have faith in him as a manager. I'm not saying that, but I think for that, I feel sorry for that man, and I think for his mental health and his reputation, he should get away from this shitstorm before it really blows up, because from the very start he's been belittled, he's been talked down about in the press by...
That happens to every Celtic
I know it does, but at the same time, managers coming out, Dan Pachescu or whatever, he's coming out and saying he was offered the Celtic job. There's about 5 managers in front of Dyla that were supposedly offered the job before this guy.
I'll make one point. There's a difference between an inquiry and being offered. Now, see, a lot of these guys will use Peter Lawwell, an email or a phone call, and they'll say, I was offered the Celtic job. It doesn't necessarily mean they actually were offered the Celtic job, because here's another thing. People lie.
Of course.
Celtic are never going to come out and say, we didn't offer that guy the Celtic job. Larson, I thought, coming out, I think, undermining the manager. Why can't Larson just keep his mouth shut?
That was a real surprise.
Why can't Larson just keep his mouth shut until his autobiography? Why does he have to come out and say, I was offered the Celtic job? To me, that's undermining the new manager.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's what I'm saying. But at the same time, he's not been backed by the club. Peter Lawwell, who brought him in, they've went out. They've tried to get other managers and they've been knocked back. So they've went, we need somebody, get this character in, and we're not gonna back him. We're not gonna back him with any sort of money. They've dropped the ball massively in terms of what has happened over the past few years, and they've been left with an absolutely terrible team, terrible squad that was not future-proof. And they've ended up and it's not about the strategy and all that, and being wrong. It's not that it's wrong, it's that they've carried it out in the wrong way. They've failed to carry it out correctly, and they've ended up having too much risk in their strategy and banking on getting into the Champions League and not willing to spend any money to get it. Now, I know, and Bryan said earlier on, which is a totally valid point, about how we've signed players on loan with the option to buy, but at the same time, you're making money. You've had money for the last couple of years that we've not had in a very long time. The fact that you cannot go out and buy a player is ridiculous. Not spending any money in a summer transfer window.
See, we were getting
back
turned
a new
down
manager.
by guys who are playing in the Spanish second division, or guys like Cameron Jerome. Like, it kind of shows what you're up against. I guarantee.
There's no way that Cameron Jerome is a Ronnie Dyler target. No
but
way.
Dyler's already come out and admitted
Because
that.
he's not going to want. Who on earth would want Cameron Jerome in their team? If Ronnie Dyler talks about how he wants to play this 4-3-3 and lovely passing football and dominate games, I cannot see how the likes of an EPL reject like Cameron Jerome would fit into his plans. I think he probably has lists of players that he would like, and he's been told, no, never mind that. We've got our own scouting network. We go with that.
But if you think about it, Dyler's been used to scouting guys for a Norwegian team. He's now had a massive step up. He's already come out and said that he trusts John Park in the scouting system. He's brought in Berget and Denaya, who are his signings. Tonev is clearly one that's been on the books for a while. Wakaso, I don't know. I think Dyler has been made a bit of a scapegoat as is, Berget and things. But there's no chance it's time for him to go just now. I get what you're saying in terms of from his personal point of view.
That's the only way I'm coming from it is from his own personal view. I'm not saying that the last thing I would want him to do was to leave, but at the same time, it's going to be such a hard job for that man to turn this around.
But he's trying to come in and change not just systems, but attitudes. I mean, like, Stokes would rather go out and get pished on a Saturday night than maybe just prepare himself for the week ahead. It's crazy.
Chris?
You're right, Bryan, you're absolutely right. And what Louis said is the managers come in and they've not spent a penny to back him. And I understand you see some of our targets, we can't compete with certain clubs, but I don't buy that every player doesn't want to sign for us. I don't buy. I believe Finn Bogason, for instance, last season, I know he's a firm favourite of Celtic fans, but the reason we didn't buy him was because we wouldn't meet the transfer fee. Now, I don't know, what did they end up going to Spain for?
10 million.
No, it wasn't 10 million.
It was, I think it's initial 6 with like additions or something.
There you go, 6 million. That's the figure that I wanted, right? What did we spend on Pookie and Baldy combined?
It was about 6 million.
Right, okay. Would rather have had Finn Bogason or Pookie and
I'm pretty sure Finn Bogason went for 10 million quid.
I don't think he did.
But again, regardless of way, I mean, he went for that amount of money based on another outstanding season in the Eredivisie. I think he scored like 27 goals last year. If Celtic had pushed the boat out, sacked the Pookie and Baldy, and even Barikta, they could have got Finn Bogason.
Yeah, well, that's my point. But if we make an outlay on a one real quality player, now there's risk involved in that. That could go wrong. But instead of going for slightly cheaper options that may work out, go for someone who's got a much greater chance of being a major first-team player.
I agree with you, but at the same time, although we do need that striker that we've never replaced Hooper with, it has got to the point now that they've let the decay get so bad that we now need... One player wouldn't fix it. We need players in every position on the park to improve that team and to get it to where it should be. And the one thing that really, really makes me angry, in which... I mean, I wasn't even that bad until the Dundee game, and it seemed to make me a lot worse, was the fact that we should be building from a position of strength. I know the last time when Chris was here on the podcast, Chris said about how these things happen in cycles and clubs have to kind of rebuild every few years, and I totally get that. But there's no conceivable way why, in the current state of Scottish football, that Celtic should have to start from the bottom again. We shouldn't have had to do that. Lennon had to start from the bottom when he came in because of the mess of Tony Mowbray. Lennon had built us up to a really good squad, a young squad, but very good, very talented. The club should have progressed. It should have built on the success that it had and progressed for the future, and it never done that. And now it's gotten way back to the point now where it's on a par with the rebuilding job that Lennon had to do.
But then last season we went and bought a guy from Ajax and a guy for the Bundesliga, and a striker who had scored 9 goals in the Portuguese top division. They just turned out to be absolutely garbage.
I know, but I mean, some people, fair enough, are going to be blinded by where they're coming from and what leagues they play in.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's what they have done at their clubs. I mean, Berichter, yes, he came from Ajax, great club, but he wasn't getting a game. He's injury prone, and there's very few clubs that would have been in for that guy because it was clear to them that he was having difficulty. And yet we took him. Maybe it was based on Ajax, or maybe it was because an agent touted it to us, and we were suckers for it. But it's happened too much. There's been too many bad decisions made that have put us into a position now where we are on a par with some of the worst Celtic teams that we've had in a long time.
Do you think that's our scouting system? I mean, I imagine John Park identifies a lot of these players, and then I would hope that the ultimate sanction is given by the manager. But if the scouting system are bringing up and highlighting these players, then there's a problem there.
As Bryan said, Dylas came out and backed John Park, saying he trusts him. He thinks he's the right man in charge.
A vote of confidence for the head scout from the manager.
From the manager, his job's hanging by a thread.
But if you look at the success we've had over the past and just unearthing absolute gems for peanuts, then
see the thing.
We've had a few, but we've had a lot of failures as well.
But that's not.
That's where the issue is.
But see unearthing a few gems, which we absolutely have. That's not a strategy. That's luck.
It's not luck.
Aye, it is. Of course it is.
So getting Forster, Hooper, Wanyama, who else have we punted for big bucks?
Wanyama and Key were both gambles because Wanyama was coming.
Every player's a gamble, though. When you think about it.
No, I agree. Every player's a gamble. But the point is, we're all at odds. And
but Key's a great point. I think all of us. I thought Key was a great player.
I think we all.
And I would. The abuse that guy got for being in no Celtic class and doesn't get stuck into tackles and all that. And now he's excelling in a Swansea team who won 3 games in a row this season. Yeah,
I mean, there's also something to be... Well, what about the Van Dijk situation? Do you think that he should have played yesterday, Chris?
Maybe Dyla was right. Maybe his head was all over the place. And I know some of the guys on the podcast have given him a bit of stick for thinking he's getting above his station a bit, but personally, I'm glad he's still with us. Well, there's still time for him to leave, but I'm glad he's still with us because I think he has been one of our better performers this season. Should he have been there playing yesterday? Aye, but if Dyla made the call that his head was elsewhere, then fair enough to drop him. But personally, I'm glad hopefully he's going to stay with us.
We've obviously got lots of points to make on this, so we asked for some questions. If anyone had any questions, we've got some questions. I'm going to get you guys' thoughts on them. We're going to start with Stevie Mac at Ginzie, GINZIE69. My question is why? Just why? Nothing else. Chris?
I don't know, Stevie Mac. I don't know.
Robert Sherry asks what our opinions are on the transfer policy. Are we copying the Arsenal model?
No, they signed Sanchez and Otso. We signed Pookie and Borigter. I'm passing over to Louis. Louis, start shouting.
Angry young man is Louis. What your thoughts on that question? Just our thoughts on the transfer policy. Are we copying the Arsenal model?
No, I don't. I can see the similarities, but I don't really think you can compare it. We're living within our means as Arsenal are, but at the same time, Arsenal had to splash out for the likes of Ozil and Sanchez, and they done it because the money was there, and they felt they could do it for one or two exceptional players. Celtic won't do that.
Robert goes on to say, I believe Ronnie Deila must be given time and the loanees and team to get to gel. However, how long do you think he realistically has? That's a good point. I think at the start of the season, I'll come to you in a second, Brian, but the start of the season, I said if we're still a shambles come early December, then I would reckon that he could probably go at that point, because that is a fair crack at the whip, I think personally, in a league that you're not really challenged that much. If nothing else, because teams beat each other all the time. It's a very competitive league. Any sort of consistency, and you're actually challenging for the title. So, Brian, what about yourself? How long realistically?
I would love him to get the entire season. Just looking at what he's saying and how he's grasped an opportunity that he probably never thought would come along. Realistically, in terms of the kind of fickle nature of football fans, I think exactly that. If this hasn't improved by December, then I can't see him lasting until the January transfer window.
I agree. I think he deserves at least till Christmas to prove himself. However, with the reaction that's been building up already this season, I think it just shows you how little time fans are willing to give the manager, even at Celtic. And I know we'd spoken about how we would love to see the club just change our policy, and if they're so worried about money, just go with the youth. Put in the youth players, build it up over a few years, and fair enough, fans would have to agree to be patient, but you can see that that's just not going to happen. Although we would love it, and although I'm sitting here getting angry about wanting signings and all that, it is hard to take when Peter Lawwell's coming out and saying we could spend $6 million on a player, but it's his wages. And he quoted one player he was saying was on 60 grand a week. I can't remember.
He said that Stephen Fletcher was on 37 grand a week. Was it 37 he said? Which I thought was incredibly small, considering he's been in the EPL for 4 years.
Yeah.
That actually kind of shocked me. Chris, what's your thoughts on Dial in terms of time limit?
I would give him a minimum of 2 transfer windows. I don't see any point in making a change unless we aren't leading the league quite healthily, because there's no excuse given our budget for him not to win the league. If we were behind or really close before then you need to kind of make a decision and just chop him. But if we're winning games, albeit not great, he deserves 2 transfer windows, essentially a season, as Bryan says, to see if he can implement his style on the side, and then maybe it's time to look at something else.
Darren Smith at Thurso Boy, his question is really simple. Can Celtic cope with no new investment in the team and no strikers at all this season?
Can they cope? As a squad as it is now, can we win the league? Of course. Will we win the league? Almost definitely. But fans will stay away. Fans won't turn up to watch that, and the Europa League would just be a lesson in getting pumped.
But Brian, this is one for you. This is from Craig McCaffrey at Alcorta 81. If we don't get anyone in, is Lawwell done at the club? Now, we can take that from the point of view of Peter Lawwell isn't probably going to be sacked by the board or anything, but ultimately, if we don't get anyone in this transfer window, do you think that the fans are really going to start to revolt?
I think it's already started, and if you try and look at it realistically and take your Celtic hat off, which I know is almost impossible, but Scottish football's disastrous just now. Well, league's rated something like 24th in Europe.
We're a small country, remember.
Well, so are a lot of countries that are ahead of us in terms of their output and the quality of players that they're progressing. It's
I'm not joking, just go on.
It's without a shadow of a doubt, it's difficult to attract a level of player that would appease the fans to the Scottish League. Skepovic being case in point, where would he rather play in Dingwall and Dundee and Paisley and Hamilton, or go and have a crack at Barcelona and Real Madrid and stuff like that?
Well, apparently Getafe have been refused permission to sign him, so he'll be having a crack at Real Madrid B and Barcelona B.
I can imagine a lot of people going to work listening to this on Tuesday stroke Wednesday going, yeah, he's signed for us.
Yeah, a bunch of fans.
Or he's in Birmingham or Hull.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Hull's a bit of a city. It's up and coming.
But
Culture soon.
going back to the quit, there's no chance Peter Lawwell's going to leave. He, for his job, in terms of the eyes of the board and stuff, he does a great job. In terms of he's an easy scapegoat for fans because he is the guy that just gets blamed for everything. He doesn't have the money at Celtic. I mean, Dermot Desmond's the guy that could come in, same as he's done with Robbie Keane, and just go, there you go. There's a big, massive blank cheque, going out and get someone.
Chris, I'll come to you in a second, Louis. In terms of, the fans are desperate for Lawwell. A lot of fans are, there's a big percentage that are desperate for Lawwell to go. They want his head on a spike almost. I mean, if that did happen, let's just say that did happen, wouldn't we just get another chief executive? And wouldn't he do the same thing? Is this more about the bigger picture of a Celtic team that's got its hands tied behind its back because it's in Scotland, it's not making any money in Scotland, and 2 defeats and you're not making any income from Europe? I think it's a lot more tough. Sorry, I know. I think it's a more complex situation than people give credit for.
Our biggest problem is that we play in Scotland. The income streams aren't there. We can't attract the players that we'd like to, that a club of our size in another league could. That is our biggest problem. We do spend money. We spent money on a lot of draws last season. That's the problem. We definitely do spend money. However, Lawwell's got 2 things going against him. One, his relationship with certain part of the fans, like the Green Brigade, has been shaky over the time. And 2, he's talked about a transfer policy and what we need to do and stuff like that. And although the policy, as Louis said and we've said in the past, there's nothing wrong with buying to sell. What you need to do is have a product on the pitch that's worth watching, and we don't. Our squad's bloated with underachievers, and I think Lawwell needs to take a share of the blame for that. The thing is, there's a lot of people saying they want him to go. Who would you replace him with? Another chief executive? I think he's carrying out the financial plan
that the board want.
That the board want, yeah, essentially. But he's also got a remit to put a team on the park that's worthy of watching and is successful, and he's failed in that part. But is there a consequence for that? I don't know. Are you going to get rid of him? Are you going to bring in somebody that can implement that better?
Let me ask you this, Louis. Great points, Chris. Let me ask you this, Louis. From we covered the Bundesliga a couple of years ago and such. A lot of clubs were fan owned. I mean, that I think there's an underlying want for Celtic fans to own the club. But as we knew from covering the Bundesliga, you still have a chief executive and you still have a board and you just have people on the board. If you look at the accounts and if money's coming in and money has to go out, has to be filtered out in certain ways, would you take or would you be happy with a Qatari billionaire or a guy from America buying Celtic and pumping millions into them? Or what sort of structure would you want?
No, I definitely wouldn't want that. And this just comes back to what I was saying earlier, and I was thinking about this on my way home from work today, about how there's just no passion, there's just no heart or desire or want to play for Celtic, to make Celtic better, to run out onto the pitch and dominate a team and say, no, we're Celtic, we're better than you, we're going to show you how to play football. That doesn't happen anymore, and that's what I want to happen. That's what we all want as fans, because it's how we feel. But these players, by the looks of it, they don't have the connection to our club like we do. And when you look at teams like Man City or Chelsea, who have been pumped full of millions, and fair enough, it's brought success. At the same time, when I was thinking about it today, I would hate that, because it would pull you even further away from your club. There's all the players at Man City right now, there's none of them are Man City fans. There's none of them are proud to be at Man City because it's Man City and it's that club that's been around for so long. And I would hate for that to happen at Celtic. And although I understand the criticism of Peter Lawwell, at the same time, I think the basic question is, who would you replace him with? And there's no one can answer that, because we don't know chief executives, and we don't know that they would do a different job to what Peter Lawwell would do. I think the man has done very well at Celtic in the time that he's been there, but him and the other people behind the scenes have gotten things wrong in the past couple of years, and they need to rectify it. They need to learn from it and improve in the future.
Bryan?
That apparently John Guidetti is at Celtic Park right now. So
George Cadet's at Celtic Park. Actually, well, Chris, you make your point. You were just about to make a point, yeah?
Go to Bryan first, because I've forgotten it.
Pressure's on. As I've said, Lawwell has a successful track record. There's no getting away from it. Since he came in, I think we've had, 8 titles, 7 Champions League appearances, 3 last 16s. The past couple of seasons have been poor. And the most galling thing about it is the past few seasons we've had an opportunity to do things that we've never had a chance to do before, because there was no pressure from another club of our size. We could have stripped it right back, promoted youth, and really taken the club forward. We as a club, or Lennon as a manager, decided not to. And I mean, he even came out and stated, there's no, you're not given time as a Celtic manager. You need immediate success. I actually think the past couple of years, Celtic fans would have appreciated a programme of building, and we just didn't get it. And now we're having to start from still a position of strength domestically, but if you look at us as in European terms, we're nowhere.
Yes.
I think the point I was going to make was Louis talking about the connection between the fans and the football club and Man City. I think, unfortunately, football as a community game's kind of dead, and I think if we want to move on in terms of Europe and stuff like that, we need to be aware of that. Do you know what I mean? I think, unfortunately, football's moved on, and it's less romantic than it once was, shall we say? Yeah,
with the whole sort of a sugar daddy coming in, a Qatari prince or whatever, we've seen clubs really suffer. Malaga being one of them. Monaco look like they're going to be another one where they just pull out.
Yeah.
They lose interest, they pull out, and there's a chance that the club just will completely fold and just, liquidation, lose all the, not exist anymore.
That's what would happen if Dermot Desmond pulled out of Celtic. Would it not? I mean, he's the only guy that's pumping money into Celtic.
Yeah, but Celtic are in a position where they don't need someone to come in and wipe out a debt. Yeah. So they would have somebody to be able to buy it. Whereas if you look at Man City or Chelsea, if Abramovich goes, they're gubbed.
No, not Chelsea. No, I think Chelsea pretty much. Well, probably they would be. The point is, there's not been a lot of structure to this podcast because we're all just ranting, which is fine. I think that's fine. You need a rant now and then. We've got another couple of points. Okay, here's one. What do you think of the club's constant inability to prepare properly for the start of our season, i.e. signings, match preparations? Every year we seem to play teams that are 10 games into their season in the Champions League qualifiers, yet we prepare by playing meaningless games and players who will not make it into the first team. If you're playing music, fuck the police by NWA, sorry, I went too long in that thing. That's from John Bowd, that's but. Thoughts on that, Chris?
I hear what he's saying, but I've always maintained summer football's for Diddy leagues, and I know Scotland probably is a Diddy league, but
you're almost admitting that.
You're basically saying, we're small time.
I don't think it would make much of a difference.
In terms of the teams we play at the start, we should be. The quality we have should be much more than them, that it shouldn't be a factor. I do think that we should be bringing new signings in earlier so that we can kind of get them training with the first team squad as opposed to drip feeding them in when the qualifiers are taking place. I think that's a big problem that we're waiting to see if we qualify for the Champions League before we kind of finalise our budget and we spend. I think we should probably spend the bulk of our money before that.
So you want to speculate to accumulate?
Well, there's a big thing about not getting into debt, huge amounts of debt because of what happened at Rangers, but nobody's asking that we spend millions and millions and millions. Just that we spend a real proportion of what we're going to spend before the qualifiers so that we can kind of embed the team in. Speculate to accumulate to a certain degree. See if we need to go into debt a little. Do that. There's a real, but thing about not going into debt at all, which I don't think we need to do. See if we have an outlay, a bigger outlay one season, to allow us to build the nucleus of a side. I don't think that's a big problem.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, you can't disagree with it. I think that's why the position Celtic find themselves in, where knowing if we win the league we're going to be, kicking off a Champions League campaign in July. I think that's when January's really important for Celtic as well, if they can get somebody in and bed them in for half a season. But this whole waiting to see where we are, it's really, really frustrating. Whereas if they make the move early enough, I think this season, before Lennon chucked it, said he wanted players in before the World Cup, which kind of get everybody's hopes up, and then just typically nothing happened.
Yeah, well, do you know what? We've been ranting, and I'm sure we will for the next couple of weeks, maybe even next couple of months. But Celtic have qualified for the Europa League. We have been in the same group as Red Bull Salzburg, Dynamo Zagreb, and Astra Giurgiu. So I gave each Cynic a little task of telling us about the team. We'll start with, who had Red Bull Salzburg? Chris Sermanni, hand up. Louis, give him the old microphone there. So Chris, talk us through Red Bull.
Okay, here's the bad news. They won the Austrian Bundesliga by 18 points last season, scoring 110 goals.
Oh dear.
Top scorer was Jonathan Soriano with 31 goals. Next was Alan.
Big Al.
Big Al, a Brazilian.
Yep.
See, what is it with Brazilians having shite names these days, man? Alan and Bernard.
You can call me Al,
Fred, yes. He had 26 goals. They have a player, Sadio Mane, who has been linked with Sunderland. Ooh, Premiership. Another player, Kevin Campbell, has been linked with a host of top clubs over the summer, but it looks as if he's staying there, unfortunately. Wingers, this was a wee tweet that I seen earlier on, just to highlight how humped we probably are. Wingers, Sadio Mane and Kevin Campbell have a combined record of 175 games, 65 goals and 75 assists at Red Bull Salzburg.
Shite.
This season, they have played 7 games.
Salzburg's Wikipedia page or something here.
Listen, this is, these facts are dry, but when we break them down, it just looks that we're just going to get ridden rotten by this mob. They've played 7 games this season, plus 27 goal difference.
Shit.
But, listen, hey, here's the positives coming. At the weekend, they'd only played 6 games and were plus 28 goal difference, because they get beat 3-2 at home by Sturm Graz.
Yay!
It's Champions League qualifier. They won 2-1 at home to Malmo, but they were pumped 3-0 in the second leg. Oh, wait a minute, this is looking right up. That's it. That was the plus points. They look, I mean, just based on the stats, I haven't seen them because there's not much Austrian Bundesliga on the TV, but they look as if they've got a lot of real attacking firepower, and our rock solid defence is going to have to be on top of their game to avoid us getting gubbed. That's grim.
I mean, that's the kind of main point. You could always count on Parkhead to get the results. You always think, well, we'll win our home games, and then if we can get a draw away from home, we're just not very good at home anymore as well. So our first game is against FC Salzburg, and it's Thursday the 18th, a pretty big day, and it's away, 6 o'clock kickoff.
Oh, shit.
Right. After that, it's Dynamo Zagreb. Who's got Dynamo Zagreb? Louis McCaffrey. Louis, talk us through Dynamo Zagreb.
You've been building this up, this better be good.
Yeah.
It's really not. It took me 5 minutes. I'd like to thank my 5th year class for giving me the time to do this today. They were beaten in the Champions League qualifier by Aalborg, 2-1 in aggregate. However, they beat Romanian side whose name starts with Petrol. I'm just going to call them Petrol. They played them in the last round of the qualifiers for the Europa League, and they won 5-2 in aggregate. They're top of their domestic league currently with 19 points from 7 games. They're unbeaten. They've just drawn 1 game. They've got quite a good Portuguese goalkeeper, 31, and he's 31 years of age, called Eduardo. Attacking players, Sudani has got 4 goals in 5 games, and another Croatian player, it's Cop, C-O-P, I don't quite know how you pronounce it, but he scored eight goals. He's scored 8 goals in 5 games. So they're kind of their best kind of attacking threats. Interesting couple of wee stats.
Love it.
Well, really one stat. 40% of their goals in the league so far this season have came between the 75th and 90th minute. I also checked their goals in both the Champions League qualifier and the Europa League qualifier, and again, the majority of their goals are coming in the 75th to 90th minute. So they obviously finishing strong.
Yeah. Obviously fit as well then.
Yeah, obviously fit, yeah. In terms of their UEFA ranking, they're currently ranked 86th club side, and according to UEFA. And just for a wee bit of perspective, Celtic are 56th. So there's 30 places between us in favour of us. There you go.
Terrific stuff. So after that, we'll be facing Astra. Bryan, you tell us about Astra.
Right, I got some off for Romania, so I'm just going to make most of this up.
Okay. Count Dracula's clearly up front.
Aye. The wheels came off their Champions League campaign when they lost to Lyon.
Are you reading an article?
There's opportunities for various car-related puns here, if anybody wants to jump in at any point. They've also got a Brazilian with a shitey name, William. They're top of the Romanian league just now ahead of Star Bucharest. They played 6 games, 15 points.
They're clearly being steered in the right direction then.
They are, aye. And, you know, they're called Astra, they're for Romania, and we should pump them.
Great look at it outlook there, Bryan. Right, well, you know, as we said, because we're very Celtic top heavy at this point, but it's just because of the disaster that has been this week. We had a sort of meeting, so not a meeting thing. We were part of a situation where we went and we saw Peter Lawwell give a presentation to the Celts for Change.
And he was an absolute gentleman.
He was. So we're going to play some of that audio so you can hear what he says. It might bring a little bit of perspective in, maybe not. Who knows? But we'll put it out there. We'll just put that at the end of the show. As for did you just anything impress you over the weekend in terms of? I know we're all just so depressed. I don't even know if we want to talk about football, frankly. But anything impress you this weekend, Sermanni? Roma.
They gave away pies in that pub.
We were in a pub and they gave away pies. It was a pure posh pub as well, wasn't it?
It was right snobby.
What kind of pies? Do you know they're doing a whole range of new pies at Celtic Park? Started last season, like goat's cheese and vegetables and all that.
A goat's cheese pie.
Aye, and a bovril.
Delightful. Just to go back, Roma did impress me in the first half, although I felt in the second half they allowed Fiorentina to come back into it, and they could have sneaked an equaliser. But
it's one of the harder games of the season, though, right?
Aye, well, Fiorentina, they haven't strengthened as much as I hoped they would over the summer.
They've kept Quadrado,
they've kept Quadrado, and obviously he was a really impressive World Cup, and they've signed Mika Richards and Marin from Chelsea. But
Marco Marin's an excellent signing. I think he didn't get as much of a chance as he should have, probably at Sevilla. But Marco Marin, I think, is a guy who, if you actually play him in the sort of role that Hazard plays, if you play him in that role, I think he'll give you a good 10 goals a season.
No, Marin's a good player, but I don't think Fiorentina kind of lack creativity. I think that their biggest problem was how weak they are at the back. Stefan Savic, the player they signed from Man City now, is Montenegrin, I think.
He's rubbish.
He's garbage. I think what they really needed to do if they wanted to push on and cement their challenge for a Champions League place would have been to sign a real top class centre half, which
like Vidic.
He did well in his debut, didn't he? getting sent off. But I think they really needed to strengthen at the back, and I think I'm right in saying that Giuseppe Rossi's gone under an exploratory think he's injured as well.
Again,
Which isn't too good. I know they've got Gomez up front, but Rossi really was superb before he got injured last season. But in terms of them pushing on and threatening Napoli for that third place, I do think they're a bit light at the back.
Yeah. Your preview was terrific. It's still up on the site. Have a look at it. Just looking forward to the season in Serie A. Bryan, anything impress you? You watched the EPL this?
Did I?
Did you watch
I watched
that?
Liverpool. And yeah, really impressed, and I'm glad they get back on track. I did fear that they were actually going to be a kind of one-season wonder after their game against Man City, but I thought they were great. It was great to see Balotelli. I think it'll be a brilliant signing for him. And it's also really good to see Rodgers applauding Balotelli when he was, trying a shot from the halfway line and actually enjoying watching football. The thing that impressed me most, I think, was the Real Madrid-Real Sociedad game last night. I thought Madrid were incredible for 20 minutes, and then Sociedad came right back into it, and I can't believe ended up winning the game from 2-0 down.
Yeah, devastating Madrid for the first 20 minutes. Some really nice
cracking strip. I think I can see Louis with that one.
Yeah, Louis.
Just to brighten up his whole demeanour.
Yeah.
Louis just looks really angry now. It's a wee shame because he's so young and pretty, and all of a sudden he's just really angry, and he's aged.
I've turned ugly, haven't I?
Yeah.
You've
turned Bryan, as we call it.
Well, I give you my highlights of the weekend.
Yeah.
Raheem Sterling, I thought was brilliant for Liverpool, and I think it's great how he is matured and developed.
Apart from that mad run when he beat about 4 players and then just passed it back to the goal.
Yeah. But I think it's great how he's developed now to the point where he really is one of the most key members of that team. And it's all credit to Brendan Rodgers. You talk about Ronnie Dyer wanting to develop players and stuff at Celtic. The job that he's done with Sterling has been fantastic, to throw him in and develop him.
Yeah.
It's been great. And the other one, I just thought I'd maybe give a bit of a shout out to the SPL, or whatever we're calling it these days, for the Hamilton. Hamilton won 4-0 against Ross County, and fair enough, Ross County are in a bit of turmoil themselves, but it was a really good display from Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed with them. I mean, when they lost their first game at Inverness, they played so poorly that I thought they're just going to be the whipping boys. They're definitely going to go down, but they've turned it around since that first game, playing some really nice football and scoring goals and winning games. So I've been really impressed with them after watching the sports scene last night.
Yeah, terrific.
Good
stuff.
addition to the league, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I was actually really disappointed that Derek Adams was sacked. The club wouldn't be where they are without him and what his dad's done. But the idea, the chance of Danny Lennon getting back into football, I'm a huge fan of him too. My highlight of the Juventus game, they played, they did what they had to do, looked a bit rusty at times. But what? Why are you looking?
Because they were crap.
They weren't crap. They won. They won away.
Oh, they won away to Kievo.
It's the opening league game. It's a new manager. It's a new, a couple of new players. Why do you hate Juventus so much?
Because I just do.
There you go. Love it. Terrific stuff. As we say, over the next couple of weeks, we'll kind of pad the podcast out with not just Celtic chat, but it's just we're in such a state just now. I think we felt we had to kind of discuss it more often than not. Actually, just before we go, Scotland are playing. Louis, you're going to be watching that.
Who are they playing?
Germany.
All right.
We'll watch it in the pub, and I'll get you cheering me. You remember you cheered for the Scotland game? We watched the Scotland game.
I cheered. I did cheer at one point, yeah.
So we'll do that.
Don't know if that'll happen again.
Chris, you looking forward to the Scotland game? Will you watch it or?
Oh, aye. When is it? Sunday?
Sunday, yeah.
I'll note that in my diary.
Yeah. Also, Italy and Holland are playing.
I don't even know.
Each other.
I didn't know that.
I might be making that up also with the other thing. So
is it the qualifiers this weekend?
Yeah, qualifiers or European Championship qualifiers. Bryan, you looking forward to the Scotland game or?
Yeah, it's quite good. Even though we're playing Germany, but it's good to have a wee bit of optimism about the national team again.
Yeah, absolutely. We could go through like all the transfers, Daley Blind and going to Manchester United and Falcao earning $350,000 a week, but you're probably going to be so inundated with that over the next couple of days. There's no real point going over those transfers. We'll pick our favourite transfers next week, just because. What are you laughing at?
Sorry, there was a Sky Sports news reporter presenting outside some place, and my guys just ran up and hit me in the ear with a dildo.
Shut up.
With a what?
With a dildo.
He's hit him in the back of the head with a dildo. It's genius.
With a female sex toy right in the back of the head.
Okay, so yeah, 90MinuteCynic.com, Facebook.com/90MinuteCynic, at 90MinuteCynics, or Twitter. We'll be back every Tuesday. The podcast will be posted. Thanks to Louis McCaffrey.
I'd just like to thank you guys, because personally, I don't know what my bill's going to be, but I feel as if I've been through a good session of therapy in the last hour and a half.
It's good to see you smile.
I feel like I can smile again, that a weight's been lifted, and my back feels better because I was carrying a lot of weight there.
Brother, that's what we're here for.
Thank you.
To Bryan McManus.
Always a pleasure, thank you.
And Christopher Sermanni.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to leave you on a positive note. We're going to make 2 signings before the close of the window.
You heard it here first, and you probably know that it's probably not happened.
But they will have heard this here last when you listen to it. So,
I've been Chris Gallagher, and we'll speak to you down the road.
This is a very special football club, as we know, and unique in many, many ways. Unique because of its beginnings, for the best of reasons. Unique because of the richness of its story, the characters that have been involved, the triumphs, the tragedies, the successes, the failures. But it is the uniqueness, in my view, is most certainly down to the supporters and people like the 4 guys here and people like the Celts for Change, where in dark days for this club, where another club, Scottish club, Glasgow club, dominated at the time, it was dark days and we didn't know where we were going. And the uniqueness of the Celtic support is that they found 4 leaders, and many more actually, but the guys that are here today, that wouldn't take it, wouldn't stand for it, and were beginning to hold the people in charge at the time to account. This wasn't good enough for Celtic, particularly being second or third or fourth best to Rangers. The club, that was a catalyst, that was a turning point, and the history since then has been one of progress. We've had our up and downs, but I'm sure it's one of progress. The catalyst came when the immediate effect of Celts for Change was the change in terms of Fergus, who came here and was very, very brave with his investment, very, very bold, but he did a magnificent job. And again, that was a product, I believe, of Celts for Change. He came, he built the stadium and laid the foundations for the modern Celtic. We have had our up and downs. Fergus passed on the club to a new ownership structure, which included the fans. We've got 27,000 shareholders, which are the supporters. But there are some significant families in there, like the Keens, the trainers, and Dermot Desmond. And these individuals, along with the directors and board members over that 20-year period, are simply custodians of this wonderful football club, this magical football club. And that's how we see it, that we're here to protect it for today's generation and for future generations. And that's our job, and it's an honour and a privilege to do that. I think the ownership has led to a consistency in the board, a consistency in the management of the club and the objectives of the club. And in football, you can't, the prize of stability is massive. And Dermot Desmond's provided that over the years. He has guided it, he's directed it, and he has, I think at the end of the day, we are in a position in 2013 where we dominate. We are the dominant force in Scottish football, without a doubt. That's where we are today, and that's the intention, is to keep that going for many, many years. I think we look back to 1993. It's a small gesture in terms of what we're doing here today, but it is a long-lasting gesture, and it will mark that magnificent bunch of people that changed Celtic. Looking forward, we need our fans to be as objective and as challenging as they were in the past, and that keeps us all on our toes as custodians. And going back to 1993, there's a hint of irony here where the anti-establishment, the underdog and the rebels have most certainly won.